Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall be...
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. I'm off the mic there a bit. Well, today we're going to continue our study in the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, right? And we're picking up at verse 13. Let's begin reading there. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. The spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity, but a wounded spirit who can bear? The heart of the prudent getteth knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeketh knowledge. A man's gift maketh room for him, and bringeth him before great men. He that is first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbor cometh and searcheth him. I'm going to read that one again because I was actually still thinking about the last verse. He that is first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbor cometh and searcheth him. Like that one. The lot causeth... Is that just me, or is my compression just too insane? Wait, that should be a back. Oh, wait, I see what's going wrong. I think. Oh. That's funny. I was trying a new compression on, and you know what? This isn't the one. Not using the mic. Whatever. Here we go. Continuing. The lot causeth contentions to cease, and parteth between the mighty. A brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city, and their contentions are like the bars of a castle. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall he be filled. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and obtaineth favor of the Lord. The poor useth entreaties, but the rich answereth roughly. A man that hath friends must show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. Let's see if we can get through these. Maybe we'll get to go on to more. All right, he that answers a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. I almost feel like I want to read some more. Wait. It is folly and shame unto him. Well, yeah, obviously you got to listen and find out all the information. And it's not just a question of, I thought of times, I've been guilty of jumping to conclusions. I've done folly, and I've been ashamed of my, so I get it. It's true. It's like as a child, among children even, you may have engaged in such similar foolishness, right? But it's not it's not consequential a lot of times in a lot of those things. But then you apply it to things like big deals. Like when you have an answer before you've looked for evidence or before you've seen the evidence, what I mean? Where you just, I equate it to like when people just take what's told them on the news. Just they just, oh, okay, they take that without really hearing. And especially when there's a contention, when there's any contention, or when it's strange, like the pandemic, of course, as I'm alluding to. Very unusual response. They ask very unusual things of us. They close down our churches. You understand? In Roman times, Christians would meet in tombs in defiance of the government. What do you mean, don't meet? What do you get out of here? Like I said, I'm not known for my presence often in what they call the church. building. Otherwise, as far as that goes, I'm not a regular attender of church services, but during that time I did. And that was the thing. I remember, and I rebuked someone during the pandemic because they were chiding me for what I said was, look at, I'm willing to consider the vaccine. I'm willing to consider it. I'm waiting I want to hear more. I'm not gonna get in line to do it first, since I know it's experimental. I mean, that's an emergency authorized. That's because, but I was already convinced that it wasn't a real emergency. So the authorization also wasn't real in my regard. As far as, like, okay, it's authorized, fine, but like I was still willing to consider it because I wasn't sure. But there was a guy, he chided me. He's like, I guess you're just blind. You don't know. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, you have the answer at the beginning. I'm sorry. You're psychic or whatever, or God told you. He didn't claim God told him. Just out the gate, as soon as it happens, what's right, what's wrong. Even with the Israel attack on October 7th, I remember I was deeply moved, and I went to prayer about it. And that's why I ended up thinking what I think about it, which was shocking to me because I never, ever thought I'd take even a remotely, because I still don't consider it like I take the other side. I don't take the other side. I'm always on the Lord's side. And these are all people that don't know God for the most part. They're all blindly swinging about and stabbing at each other. It's horrendous. I mean, metaphorically, but literally. One of them is a lot more efficient in his stabbing. He's got the blind. What I was going to say, he's got the blindfold off, but that's kind of a funny way to say it, since that's their claim to innocence, is launch the rocket. Right. Not exactly. Actually, I've heard it reaffirmed over and over again by people that they regard that there are really no innocent people over there. They take the Osama bin Laden approach to guilt. I mean, if you're democratically elected, then all the people are guilty. Wow. That's a precedent I don't want going on in this century. My God. I don't want to be held personally responsible for the crimes of our country. But, I got to say, with the way we treat other people, I wouldn't be shocked if people wanted to hold us personally responsible, but in response, I suppose we could offer up those who are actually responsible, That's often what happens in the ancient times. They didn't punish all of Germany. All of Germany suffered because of what was done and will probably suffer. But, will it come down to individuals like us? Probably not, as far as that goes. I'm talking about just if the world goes on, because it's like you can't just be criminally responsible for so much death and just think you just keep whistling along. You think God isn't watching all these different people? Anyways, you gotta hear the whole thing. Is it listen to both sides? Well, listen and judge, assess. Listen to the quality of the information. Because I watched that very closely at that time. I didn't have an uninformed opinion about it. I still don't. I don't consider it an uninformed opinion. What I realize is like it's a lot more complex than I was led to believe, and that I believed. It's a lot. It's a lot like in our country. The settlers and the natives, and it's like they're all fighting and killing each other. There's nothing pretty about it. We finally come to peace after we absolutely conquered them. I'm glad we didn't wipe them out entirely. Around. It's like we get along peaceably in one country. That's cool. But, it's like the way it came about is, it's like by complete destruction, essentially. It was only at the end when we realized we're like, well, hold on, we shouldn't wipe these people out, or send them off into exile. Not right. And if it's like, well, there's so many more of us now than so few of them. I get it. Nobody owns any land really for, like the idea that like, What, do my children get my house forever and ever? Well, as long as they can pay the taxes on it, I guess. You're right. But at some point, 1,000 years later, does my descendants get to, if someone else buys something, they get to come and claim it? I don't know. They certainly can buy it back. And I know there was a bit of that. I don't want to go descend into this. The spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity, but a wounded spirit who can bear? Well, like I said, and every time I encounter one of these are commentaries on the human experience. And, an infirmity is like a weakness, an illness, an injury, something like that. And if you have if you're a spirited man, I use that guy with no arms and no legs, the one Australian guy, as an example. It's like he's got a spirit that allows him to live, having only a flipper foot to be able to do anything with, and a nice head on his shoulders. That's one good thing for sure. And God bless him. That proves, when a man's spirit is infused with life, especially from God and Christ, it really does bring people to life who otherwise you think, like, how can they go on living? And people who, whenever you see someone who's really crippled and they're living, you often will hear them say their faith does sustain them. Because people with no hope, how can you go on? Even if it's not it's not just hope of healing per se. Because it's like miracles happen for reasons, and so do infirmities. And I hate, to me, it's like I want everyone to receive a miracle healing and get their arms and legs, and also their wings, because I think it's a shame we don't fly. But that is besides the point. It's like we aren't worthy of any of it. Anyways, but understanding the gift that life is. That's why I said we aren't worthy of the gift that life is, even when it is, like I said, a diminished form of the life we are accustomed to. People of spirit can be sustained through such things. But when it's your spirit itself that's wounded, then what's left to bear? And it's like, but there is a good wounding of the spirit. It's like, who can bear it? Well, like it says, a broken and a contrite heart, O Lord, thou wilt not despise. Because when your spirit is wounded for the Lord's sake, because the Lord, you realize, hey, I've sinned, I've missed the mark, and I need, and that's a disappointment. That's not just a disappointment. I've failed to live up to God's standards. It's a colossal catastrophe because I can't live like that. I won't be allowed to live like that. No one can live in sin forever. And God, the commandment he gave Jesus was life everlasting. Make people live. Make people live. And sometimes in the process of living, it takes a bit of wounding. And just like getting strong, it requires you to weaken yourself by straining yourself against a heavy load. And that increases your strength when you heal. Also, having your spirit broken over the proper things, at least in measure, and healed. Who can bear it? No one can, but God can heal a broken spirit even. But there's a wounding of spirit that, sometimes people without the Lord, or even, I don't know, with them, I don't know. Because I always think with God, no wound is great enough to stop me. Like, there's no wound I can take. And in the spirit, like, there's no spiritual wound. I know because I've taken many. I've taken many wounds, and I can bear them all because of the power of the Lord with me. And that I trust. Because I have not the spirit of a man in me, but the spirit of the living God. Spirit of Christ, the Holy Spirit. When that dwells in you, you can be sustained. You can sustain any manner of spiritual attack, wound, or whatever. I know. And I've... Yeah. It's... Because you know why? Because no matter what you could say, no matter how much I could beat myself down with guilt, humiliation and the shame of sin and and thinking back on everything I've ever done that was against God and that just reinforces you do not deserve to live forever. Think back on all that stuff and it could crush me. Except I know that that Christ died for all of it. Not just some sins. You know, how often will you forgive your brother? Jesus said it was 7 times 70. If you repent 490 times. I've never sinned 490 times a day, I don't think. Well, you could break it down like that. Probably more than 490 times. Maybe I ran out of forgiveness. Kidding. Point is, you don't need to, that's the point of 7 times 70 means all perfection, sufficiency. Right? You are forgiven because Christ rose from the dead. He lives. And just know that because he lives, that you also shall live him. You died with him. You know, and so the old man died with him too. Even if you think there's still some shadow of that old man in existence, no, really, he's dead. Just like really you're raised with Christ and set on high and all that stuff. Okay, you know, it's like we're on the way. You know, that's the kind of the boots on the ground truth is we're on the way. And you just got to trust in that. That's what faith is about. It's believing it's the substance of the things you're hoping for. It's like, oh, I expect this or that, the resurrection. The heart of the prudent getteth knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeketh knowledge. Get knowledge, look it out. Your ear, notice it's the ear and the heart. I like the way it directs it at specific organs. You know, it's like the ear is seeking, you know, looking when you hear things, to be attentive to it. Take heed how you hear and with what measure you meet the Lord Jesus. We're going to be, you know, it's good to know things, but not, you know, again, it's knowledge for a purpose. You know, it's knowledge that it is productive. That's why a man's gift makes room for him and bringeth him before great men. I can attest to this. You know, I mean, great men is, you know, just means big people, important people. I've been in front of important people. My gifts have made room for themselves. In high school, I was one of the 25 finalists at the Chicago Tribune movie critic contest. You know, there was like a couple thousand kids wrote a review, and I got one of them, and I got chosen as a finalist. I didn't win the contest because I hated the movie they brought in. They brought in, and I couldn't write a review for it that I thought was. I remember I struggled to describe what I was saying. Anyways, and I've been on the Alex Jones program. Not that, you know, whatever you think about him, he's a big person. You know, when you do things. You know, they say, well, Paul, you know, I may do more with my programming talent and my musical talent than get on the Alex Jones show for sure. But the point is, when you have gifts, they have a way of bubbling out, and you get recognition for them. You know, and that's why I never sweat like how many people are watching this or whatever. It doesn't matter because it's like the gift makes room for itself. To me, this is a very Nietzsche kind of thing. I mean, not Nietzsche the philosopher. I mean, like a niche. Or a niche, as some people say, because there's only going to be a limited number of people that are going to have the patience. You know, like I said, that maybe come and listen to the reading and then they kind of drift off. That's all right. It's a long process to go through all these line by line, look at each verse and to think about it, get distracted by other thoughts. But it's kind of fun if you enjoy that. But it's not the kind of thing that people are going to be like, whoa, you know, that's not going to happen. You know, who would expect it to be that way? Not me. So, you know, you don't have to like, I mean, you can promote yourself. I've never been fond of self-promotion. As anyone who's followed me for a long time realizes, Paul doesn't do a lot of promotion. I sometimes do a bit, but not really. Certainly not this channel. I don't promote it much. You know, I've told a couple of people, like when they were like, convince me that God is real. I would be like, yeah, okay, first of all, when it works, you got to go listen to my Bible studies. Because if God introduces himself to you through me, he probably wants you to listen to me. And I think that's true, because it's like if I'm a teacher and someone's like, oh yeah, well, what do I do to find God? And I'm like, okay, I want you to pray, and because I'll tell them, I'll say, talk to Jesus. I'm like, I can't reveal God. I can reveal God to you, but you have to participate. I mean, I can't snap and make God appear at a command, but if you will reach out in faith, I have faith enough to think that, yeah, you will receive, he will come and make himself known to you, unbelieving though you are. If you call on him, he just might. And because if someone were to dare to do that, I've told that to many people. I know most of them will never do that. They'll never pray to the Lord. They don't believe. They mock God. But somebody's going to be foolish enough to try. I mean, we're wise enough, if you know what I mean. Foolish enough from their perspective. Remember, the wisdom of man is foolish to God, and the wisdom of God is foolishness to man. Very often that's the case. Like, why are you bothering with all this stuff? He that is first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbor cometh and searcheth him out. I'm not sure what the first phrase means as far as he that is first in his own cause. Sounds like, it sounds like something pretty obvious, like, well, this is like, maybe it's a contrast. Instead of the man's gift makes room for him, but it's like the man who's first in his own cause. Me, come vote for Paul String Genie. I'll change the world. That guy, first in his own cause. He may seem just because he's justifying himself. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm the one who or whatever. I'm just kind of inflating that. That's my idea. But his neighbor cometh and searcheth him. Now, I exaggerate into politics, but you know how some people are that way in their personal life, talking about how great they are all the time, right? They're always building themselves up, talking about how, but you know what? People, his neighbor, people who are living close by, they know. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, that Mr. So-and-so, he's not so great. Actually, he's kind of a jerk. He talks a big talk, but he's actually a stingy, miserly, cruel, rude person or whatever, The point is, when you make a boast of yourself, people they're like, oh, really? Really? And then they look into you and see if you really are what you say you are. If I were to go, like Arnold Murray, that's a good example. He used to call himself a doctor. It was all his tapes said, Dr. Arnold Murray, Dr. Arnold Murray, Dr. And when people started looking into it, he just dropped it. Which is, to me, the biggest sign of all. Well, he didn't want to make it contentious. It's, BS. That's why I say. You know why I dropped the donation button on my website? Because people were ragging me about it. That's why. That's why I dropped it. I didn't like that. I'm honest about why I do things. I think I say I have some noble purpose, whatever, kind of, but also it was mostly because of the negative experience I have with it. Basically, I experience negative emotion. I don't want to, but sometimes you just have to, I guess. That's why I say about that pain. Pain is part of life. You may not want to depend on other people, but sometimes you have to. Okay, so first in his own cause seemeth just. Let's just peek at the NIV and see if they thought that was any kind of a decent translation of that. Huh? That seems logical to me. NIV 13, 14, 15, 16, something like that. Oh, wait, wrong chapter? Right, 1. Okay, well, 18 is what we need. Okay. A gift opens the way and ushers the giver into the presence of the great. Really? I never thought of it that way. Wow. They probably got a better idea of what it means than I do. I liked my way of thinking of it. That's how Pastor Mark Nutting always talks about it. Gifts make room for themselves and ushers the giver into the presence of the gift. I guess I thought of that wrong. I thought of it in the Christian sense, and I was probably wrong about that. That's what I'm saying. I can be right and wrong at the same time because what I said was true, but it was inaccurate as far as what that scripture was actually trying to impart to you. The wisdom of, hey, but it also sounds a little cynical. Like, hey, a gift makes room for itself. Look at this big gold bauble I'm bringing. And here you come into the presence of the great. And that's actually true of how I got into Alex Jones because I made a video game about him. It was kind of, I realized it wasn't an attempt to get on the show, but in a sense, when you do something that features someone like that, I guess the person is going to take notice. So that sort of actually does, that actually is an appropriate mention of what I talked about is exactly the sort of thing. It's like when you do something that is positive for someone who's in a position of power of some sort, because he's got power. I mean, God knows, we also got, we won one of his contests and got 10 grand out of it. So I don't know if another thing. In a lawsuit, the first to speak right. Okay. In a lawsuit, the first to speak seems right until someone comes forward and cross-examines. And they put it, this is what I mean. It's like, boy, they really pigeonhole this. Doesn't leave a lot of room for interpretation once they interpret it, right? But that's a similar thing. Like they get out in front, they start talking. It almost seems like there's less work for me to do if I was going to use the NIV. It would be like just a question of like, oh, that's what it means. Oh, but there's always a thing to comment on. Okay, anyways. But that's the same idea that like you can say a lot of things, but then your neighbor's going to come. This whole in a lawsuit, boy, that's really interpretive. Now, like I said, I think it applies to things like lawsuits, of course, right? He that is first in his own cause. Yeah, he puts his cause first, his legal cause. That's probably what cause there is, right? Well, let's look at that word in Hebrew real quick. Proverbs 18. So, first in his own cause. Strife or dispute. It's the word we've heard, strife. Yeah, it's about cross-examine. It's for someone who actually goes. The word first just means former, first, or chief. The one who's first in strife may seem to be the Sadiq, the just one. But his neighbor comes and searches him. Means to search. Yeah, that idea of cross-examination is fine. But I think they're applying it way too specifically. It could be any time someone is listening to two people argue and trying to adjudicate. It could be in a legal case, but it could just be a dispute between friends. You know what I mean? And I guess you could take the legal and then sort of back it up into a personal dispute. But I think the scripture is not merely talking about a legal case. I do think the idea of this being, any kind of dispute is a little more in the spirit of it. Anyways, so the lot causes contentions to cease and parteth between the mighty. The lot refers to when you would it probably refers to the actual Urim and Thummim that the high priest would use in his breastplate and the container and stuff. A very, like the lot is cast in the lap. It's that deciding lot. Or it could just refer to, because a lot of times when there's the toss of a coin, sometimes you do things on the toss of a coin. Sometimes you do things on the taking of a lot because there's no, I mean, I don't, and I guess that's, I've said this before. One of the things that troubles me often is not knowing which way to go. And it's not and it's not an obvious moral question of what to do. It's more like, okay, which productive activity is most important right now? And figuring that out. And if you can't figure out which is more important or which is more right, the idea that you might just randomly choose one, it's just what I end up doing in those situations. I'll just decide, right? But, and that's almost never completely unprejudiced. You're always going to have subconscious sort of things pushing you one way or the other, probably. I know I probably do. I don't, because if I actually took a lot and flipped a coin to choose between two or a dice to choose between six or whatever, it would be, I might have feeling of regret of oh, I didn't want that to be it, or I wanted it to be something else. So it'd be interesting to me. I don't ever decide like that. But sometimes when there's contentions and there can't be there's no way to tell between the two who is whatever, they would use lots to determine. Because you both agree, for example, like you always see it in movies, when someone has to go do an unpleasant task, they draw straws. That's very similar to lots. And sometimes when it's, okay, well, who's going to back down from this? And we're going to make it kind of a parting of ways, but someone has to be first or whatever, Sometimes it's by lot. I know, like when we do wrestling every year, it's the beginning when they go through at the state tournament, they go through all the weights, right? And they start at a different weight every year. And I don't know exactly how that's determined, but it's not an obvious sequence. Put it that way. Okay. A brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city. Anything more to say about the lot? Just that it's something kind of archaic, but the idea is that they would decide by a lot. A brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city, and their contentions are like the bars of a castle. Yeah, when you and it doesn't talk this when you're really close to someone, even it's also in like love relationships that aren't marriages, or even a marriage, that it can be the same. When you offend your wife, whew, want to talk about a strong city. But a brother also, when when you have a trust relationship and you do something to violate that trust, yeah, that is, because I understand when people close to you, when you feel betrayed by those closest to you, that is an extremely alienating and scary feeling. Jesus experienced that with Judas, because brought Judas close, and he knew Judas was going to betray him, which in some ways is good. In some way, knowing it is both an advantage and sort of a disadvantage. You know what I mean? Like you might prefer not to know, but then on the other hand, you might prefer not to be surprised. So it's like it's a trade-off. Anyways, but it's like, imagine you don't know and you fully trust your brother, and then suddenly he does something that's way over the line. Something just that violates your friendship. Things I have trouble thinking of things. Well, they go immediately to criminal, or like I don't want to go too far, because if you go too far, it goes beyond offense. It goes to just absolute betrayal. But when what is offended here? Pasha, rebel, yeah. Yeah, so offended, it means to be, since it's pasha, which is rebellion or transgression, it means you've transgressed against him. It's like I said, there's a boundary that's been crossed. Something, oops, I didn't want to go forward. I wanted to, that button did that. Okay, yeah. Like the bars of a castle. Yeah, because because when you go that far to betray someone, even if it's not something truly criminal, like I can think, oh, you steal something of yours, that's a bit, or just like or sometimes relationship type betrayals, where like they go behind your back and do something that they know would be offensive to you, and or just that kind of double dealing, backstabbing kind of behavior. I don't like to even think of it, because honestly, I have a lot of peace in my relationship. I try to, and then when because I try to avoid that. People that I know are dangerous, you kind of gotta avoid. You don't want to. Yeah, because yeah, actually, I feel I am a brother offended. I have contentions like the bars of a castle, because it's like sometimes, because that's the thing. It's like I don't want to. It's not like people have. They deny the faith, they deny the truth, and then they live fornicative lives, adulterative lives, and then and then personally attack you. It's like it's hard to maintain that brotherhood. Anyways, and so the offense causes this a very strong defense. It's almost harder than trying to find peace with an enemy, especially if you're reaching out, genuinely, and maybe for the first time. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Okay, wait. A man's belly shall be filled with the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall he be filled. His belly shall be satisfied. I'm sorry, with the fruit. I think that is it referring to like making a living off your words? I don't think that's what it means. Obviously, what it's saying is you reap. It's a kind of a you reap what you sow type thing, as far as I'm concerned. That the fruit of your lips, whether if it's good, you're going to have good in return. But if your mouth is full of foolishness, you're not going to be filled. There's no filling in that. You're going to be emptied. Because what is it? I guess because I think of the belly, it says right here, satisfaction, right? A full belly is a symbolic of satisfaction, and the mouth can give you satisfaction when you have good words. It gives you a good reputation. It also can lead, I suppose, to actual prosperity, right? I mean, because if you have information and knowledge, it's useful, then that can be prosperous for you. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. They that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Yeah, that's the thing, is that the tongue has the power of life and death. I said it's a much more powerful weapon. I thought it was funny when Joe Biden said you can't fight the government with. You need, well, obviously, I wouldn't bother if you don't fight. You don't need to fight the government. You just need to get a different one. We can always change them out. We have opportunities to do that. All the time. Say, oh, you can't elect them. Oh, you can. There comes a generation where they're fed up. To get rid of everybody, fix it. We gotta slide down badly enough, I guess. I don't know. At least that's my optimistic perspective. If the devil shows up, who can say? If the devil shows up, I know we're going to ultimately lose, but it's going to be quite a spectacular, trip down to the end there. So, we'll make the most of it, anyways, right? Well, death and life. I like that concept. I talk about you can speak death as a prophet of God in the Lord's will, in the Lord's need. Whatever his necessity is, yes, the power of the tongue. And also to save life into your life. Jesus, with the cleverness of his speech, often confounded his enemy. So they didn't even really know what to answer. They not only got angry with him, I mean, obviously, at the trial, he sort of provoked them by admitting the truth. He's like, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed? Yeah, actually, I am. You're going to see me sitting at the right hand of majesty. That's not a defense, because that's not the truth. And in some way, it's funny that that's not a defense in that case. Too hostile a court. So if you love the power of the tongue, you can eat the fruit thereof. I guess I try to live of it a bit. I get a little income through my music, not much. Not much, a little bit, a little trickle. Get $100 a month, about maybe a little less, right? Most of that is from my hit song Dora. Most of it's from Google. Yeah, but that's not much, right? That's not much to live of, but it's fruit thereof. Yeah, get a few more like that. It won't be long. Okay, whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing. Obtaining the favor of the Lord. I attest that this is true. A lot of bad, and obviously, it implies like a good wife. Obviously, a woman, a worthy woman. And that is a good thing, man. My life is so much better having a good wife than it would be without one. And hey, not everyone has to be married, and here's the thing: marrying badly is miserable. And the Proverbs will get into that. It's better to be on the corner of a house than with an angry and contentious woman. Better to be off in the sticks. Better, there's a lot of things that are better than being with a really unpleasant woman. A lot of things are better than that. So, when you find a wife, you find a good thing. Because a wife is a thing. Oh, she's a woman. No, a woman is a wife, but a wife itself is like a office. It's not just, I don't know, it's not just your spouse. It's not this neutral thing. Husband and wife, man and woman, right? And a man doesn't absolutely need a woman. A woman doesn't absolutely need a man, but they're both they're good together. It's a good thing. When God favors you, like I felt, and I've said to my wife many times, like for many years, one of the strongest evidences to me of God's favor on me was the manner and the character of the woman he brought to me for a wife. He brought her to me at my Bible study. She came in the door, and then she sat in. It was random because she lost her keys. She was looking for them, and she was like, "Oh, are you having a Bible study? Do you mind if I sit in?" And she never left. She's watching today. She's always there. That's the reason the study exists, because I have one student who's always there to sit in. I'm not teaching nobody, right? But but the fact that at the time I didn't think anything of her except like, oh, here's a person. She was not an attractive young lady, but I wasn't interested in the attractiveness of young ladies. I was interested in the scripture. I was interested in young ladies, but I was interested in ladies that were interested in scriptures. And only after I knew that she was genuinely interested in finding that out, that process, that's how I fell in love with her rather quickly, because I realized, whoa, she's really into this, and I felt favored of God in that. And throughout my nearly 30 years of being married, not quite, we're our 29th anniversary in April, but nearly 30 years, it's held true that it's like, wow, this has been a benefit for me. She's always been a good thing for me. Like, there's no end to the good she does. Like, she's a net positive in my life. She's a major addition. Obviously, I built a lot with her. We had 8 children together, and I felt favored in that. And 7 sons by she bare me 7 sons, woman. How would I not feel favored of God with her? And she's beautiful and, all those other things. Kind, thankful, all the things a good wife should be. Industrious, mindful of things. She hates this flattery. Probably. I don't see any hearts going up. Oh, wait, there we go. Oh, look at all those hearts. That's me. All right. So we'll move on to the next verse. I say that's true. I know they're all true, but it's good to hear confirmation on the ground, right? The poor uses entreaties, but the rich answer roughly. Yeah, they're jerks, aren't they? They think they don't have to answer that. Right? Because it's like it has a way of inflating your ego. Riches do. They do. That you feel more entitled. Other people are less. You're used to actually, sometimes when people are really rich, they have actual hired servants. People who just do whatever they say. Like not within reason. It's like, but just doing all the menial tasks around them, their laundry, their making their beds for them, tidying everything, keeping everything spick and span, like a cleaning crew, a chef to make everything for you. And then, and I think that sometimes like as a father, you can, as the Lord of the house, there's almost like a kingdom thing that arises there. And I think sometimes that what makes dad kind of rough too, also, because he is in that position of power. You gotta be careful. Like I said, don't provoke your sons to wrath. You don't want to make your children. I had a nice talk with one of my kids last night, and I was pleased because they were hungry for the word. Because I always have endeavored not to overdo it as far as to cram their throat down with the word, cram their word down their throat, I should say, because it because it might make it untasteful to them. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to make the word of God an unpleasant thing, like forcing kids to memorize verses or lots of them, and rewarding them. They get rewards for remembering the verses. That's fine and all that, and I don't mind a bit of that. I'm just saying I want to be careful. I said I always talked about, I can't remember his name anymore. Like SW something. It was a funny, ironic name because it sounded like something like Geister. Like that. It was like Flick. Might have been, but his daughter fell away. She knew what the hypostatic union was and could rattle off the definitions of all kinds of theological terms. They could have debates about, theological, things when she was just a young girl. And then as soon as she left his care and went away to college, it all fell apart because it was all forced. Some things you force your kids to do. I force them to wrestle. But my religion, I presume it. You know what I mean? Like I live it. I don't, what I have for them to do is for them to pursue it also, and to be obedient children, which they are. If they were displeasing me, I'd be worried, because they all believe in Jesus, but it's like, why wouldn't they? Because it's what they're told from their youth. The fact that they obey Christ to me is a sign, and also the obedience, and like I said, they're not perfect, but they know that, and they also understand. It's like they said, it's hard for them to have the zeal of the converted. They only have the zeal of those who are raised righteous, and you can be zealous over that, over the traditions you were handed. It's not something that you have to come in with the zeal of a convert. I mean, I was sort of, like I said, to get the zeal of a convert, you have to be like the prodigal son, which is kind of how I went, in that year at college. So yeah, when you got nothing, man, I know, you have to be beg, use entreaties, oh sir, please, and be polite, especially in those societies, those ancient societies where we live in a society that's still, there's a widening gap between the super wealthy. I don't resent their super wealth, except what they do with it to try to destroy our systems of government. They make themselves enemies of the people. Like when they fund prosecutors who let criminals go and waste their time going after innocent citizens. You know what I mean? And that kind of thing. Like people who fund, of course I'm referring to George Soros, right? Who fund these political campaigns that are destructive to society. They are destructive. And they want to destroy society so they can remake it in their own image. But okay, you go ahead and do that. But it's more likely to get you in trouble, son. More likely to get you in trouble. That's maybe why I answer rough, because I always feel it's like some of the richest of all. I mean, I've got the riches of Christ on my side, so sometimes I don't feel too intimidated by people who know not God, knowing that I have a weapon stronger than nuclear war. I mean, and I believe that. That doesn't mean I can't be like, I'm invincible. I'm not saying that. No, I'm invincible in the sense of my will is invincible in that regard. Like, yeah, you can kill me, but I will not. I will not go along with it. I will fight it. Satan comes, he's going to have to be fought. Not with guns and stuff, but with words. He has to be fought. People are going to be silent. They're going to want to just go along with it quietly. Don't get in trouble. Everyone's, be 10 times worse, 50 times worse in the pandemic as far as people going along to get along. 10 times worse. And some people will even know what they're doing, but they just don't have the guts to stand up. Because they have not Christ. Because they have not Christ. Because they had Christ, they'd have the guts. Jesus, his spirit enlivens all those who believe. I always trust that. I don't like to lash out at other believers, even if they got a little slightly different faith than mine. The main thing is that they get it right at the base. You really believe. Huh? Or is it just your brand? Is it just your religion? It's just, like I think about like the Jordan Peterson. I love him. I like that he's promoting religion because that is the pathway to true religion. You have to have some contact with it to be able to start taking it seriously. Even if you're pretending to take it seriously because you don't even really believe, that's a good start. But it's not real faith, and it's not any kind of protection against the true, like, because if you don't really believe all this, when your life's at stake, you're not gonna die for the truth. You might, but that's gonna be a very rare person. Only true faith, and that's the thing, is when they're dying, it's because they really believe in something. Something. Men have died for things they really believe in, plenty of, without Christ, yes. For things they believe in. But this will require your faith in Christ. Because if you don't have faith in Christ, there's not another belief. Well, I don't know if there's any other belief that's strong enough to overcome what Antichrist is going to lay out. It's going to be so compelling that if it were possible, even the elect would be, even I would be deceived. If it got, I could see if it went on long enough, like if he hadn't shortened the days, we got into like more than 3.5 years of Satan on the earth, 4 or 5, 6 years, and it's like, grinding it down. I could see how that goes on. Thank God he's shortened the days. That gives me confidence to know, like, whatever, I just got to go and make Satan really angry so he kills me quickly. Then that'll shorten the days for me. Right? Just run up to that tank and blast it out of the way with your mouth. Right? And I mean metaphorical tank, the Lord, like Satan. The principalities and the powers, the rulers of the darkness of this world. It's manifest in men, too. I mean, those are the rulers of darkness, dark things, dark intentions in this world. A man that hath friends must show himself friendly. You want to have friends? You got to be friendly. And there's a friend that sticketh close to the mouth. There's two separate things there. Right? You want to make friends. You want to have people. You're lonely, right? Well, like I know all too well what it's like not to have friends. I was not good at making friends. Still I'm not. I really don't have any friends. I have a couple friends, I guess. I was thinking, like I said, it's like we're friends, it's acquaintances, strong acquaintances, because we don't, I don't have anybody really close to me. Except my wife and my brother. And to do so, you got to show yourself friendly. You got to not just smile, not just whatever, you got to be there to be a friend. I'm always like tied up in projects. That's why I don't have friends. Even in my family, like my friends, it goes, even my brother, I don't see him as often as I may have in the past. It's like I don't talk to him as often as I have. And there's a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. For me, that's only my wife. But that's good. It's fine. A lot of people, I remember my friend Pastor Mark, he liked to distinguish the idea of a male friend from a wife. Wife is a completely separate thing. And I agree, a wife is a separate thing, but the person who is your wife can also be your friend. Yeah, I mean, my wife could do all her wifely duties and we could not be friends. That could be. Like she might even be happy and all that because when I look at her life, it's like our friendship isn't like the most. I don't think she has more. She's more friendly and outgoing than she has more human contact, so it probably doesn't crave it as badly as not that I crave friendship. All like I need friends. Well, I do friends. Everyone needs friendly. Everyone needs friends at some level. Christianity is about having brothers, even to elevate people who aren't your relatives to the state of brotherhood, and strangers. But we are united in brotherhood through Christ, because we have all put on Christ and we have all been adopted in that family. And we know that the Christians ought to behave as brothers, but it's a weird thing because this country is just filled with Christians. And I'll see people that may be known for years, right? And I'll see them with a shirt on. It's some sort of overt Christian symbolism and maybe a slogan or something. And I'm like, wow, I never would have guessed they were a Christian. It's like, I don't know why. Maybe because they came off as a bit of a jerk. Like, really? I mean, that's true. Sometimes you think like, oh, I never thought they would have been Christian. I remember someone did that to me in high school. Like, wow, I'm so surprised. I never thought you'd be a Christian. It's like, because in high school I was Mr. Rock and Roll and drugs and stuff, That's what I was. Not all, actually, the funny thing is that was only like my last 2 years in high school. Prior to that, I was not I was Mr. Rock and Roll, but only to myself. But to make friends, it takes friendliness on your part. Someone who is generally difficult to approach, as I was, because of my forbidding appearance, and also because I didn't animate myself in some friendly way. If I had maybe been talking to these people who were intimidated, perhaps they would see that I wasn't mean or whatever. And people that did know me, that like classmates, tended to have a different attitude towards me than people who maybe only knew me from afar. Right? I guess I hate how many times I said me, whatever. I'm just thinking of the experiences of making friends. It takes effort on your part. And friends you can have a friend that's so close, like I think of David and Jonathan, right? They were so close, the two of them, even willing basically to, Jonathan, like he displeased his father because he loved David. He wanted to save his life because he knew his father wanted to kill him. And they were very close friends. People always like to read stuff into that, just like with Jesus and some of the disciples laying on his chest and laying against each other. A lot of times the way they portray it, it's like a little bit, you understand there's a lot of people in probably a room that's just big enough. So when it says he's laying on his bosom, it just means he's laying up against him and stuff. People get weirded about it. Because people always got to read perversity into everything. And to me, it's like, there are things that people told me about, like things like biblically that they'd giggle at and stuff. Like I never even knew, and I won't repeat them because I think it's ridiculous. I don't know, not necessary. Anyways, so there we are. We'll begin in chapter 19, I think, on Monday, and then until then, we'll see you. We'll see you Monday. Well, you'll see me Monday. Anyways, I can't see anybody out. Anybody there? I'm just. Anyways, thanks for joining me. Until next time, remember the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke